Ambassador Vel stood before the massive window of the Galactic Council Station. The stars stretched out before her like scattered diamonds on black cloth. She had watched many species rise and fall from this very spot. She had seen empires crumble and new ones take their place. But today, something different was happening. Today, she would watch a young species receive their death sentence. The Novan Empire had declared war on Earth. Vel's pale blue skin reflected the starlight as she turned to face Scholar Oren. He was an old creature, covered in gray scales, with eyes that had read more history than most species had lived. He held a data tablet in his thin fingers, scrolling through information about the humans. "They are a curious species," Oren said quietly. "Only 200 years in space, and already they have 12 colony worlds." 12 worlds mean nothing against the Novans," Vel replied. "Commander Reth has 500 warships. The humans have perhaps 80. This war will last a month at most." Oren made a soft sound that might have been a laugh. "Perhaps. But I have been reading their history. It is interesting." Before Vel could ask what he meant, the communication screen behind them flickered to life. The Novan Empire's declaration had been sent 3 days ago. Now Earth was responding. Vel expected tears. She expected begging. She expected humans to ask for help from the Galactic Council, to plead for someone to save them from the coming storm. The face that appeared on the screen was not crying. Admiral Tae Wu was a human male in his late 50s. His black hair was cut short and touched with gray at the sides. His uniform was simple and dark, but it was his eyes that caught Vel's attention. They were calm. Not the calm of surrender, but the calm of deep water before a wave. "People of Earth," the Admiral said, his voice steady. 3 days ago, the Novan Empire demanded we surrender our colonies of Danwan 7, New Busan, and Hainam Station. They gave us 1 week to comply or face total war. He paused, and something cold moved behind his eyes. "We will not comply." Vel leaned forward. This was unexpected. "As of 600 hours this morning, I have ordered full mobilization of all Earth Defense Forces. Every ship, every soldier, every resource we have will be dedicated to one purpose: protecting our people and our homes. The Novans believe we are weak because we are young. They believe we will break because we have not fought a galactic war before." The Admiral's expression did not change, but his voice dropped lower. "They are wrong. Humanity has been fighting wars since before we could write. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and disasters that should have ended us 100 times over. We are still here, and we will still be here long after the Novan Empire is a footnote in history books." The transmission ended. Vel stood in silence for a long moment. Then she turned to Oren. "They are fools. Brave fools, perhaps, but fools nonetheless. The Novans will destroy them." Oren did not answer immediately. He was looking at his data tablet again, his old eyes moving back and forth across the screen. Finally, he spoke. "Do you know how long humans have existed as a species?" "Ambassador, I do not care about their biology." 300,000 years, Oren continued as if she had not spoken. "And do you know how much of that time they have spent at war with each other?" Vel frowned. "With each other? Why would they fight their own kind?" "I asked myself the same question. So I looked at their records." Oren turned the tablet to show her. "Humans have been at war with themselves for 97% of their recorded history. Not with other species, with each other, over land, over resources, over ideas, over things we cannot even understand." "That is barbaric," Vel said. "No," Oren replied softly. "That is 10,000 years of practice." The words hung in the air between them. Vel wanted to dismiss them, to laugh at the idea that such a young species could threaten the Novan Empire. But something in Oren's voice made her hesitate. "What are you saying?" she asked. "I am saying that we should watch carefully, Ambassador. Very carefully." Over the next several days, Vel did watch. She watched as reports came in from across human space. She expected chaos. She expected panic. What she saw was something else entirely. On Earth, factories that had been making farming equipment switched to producing weapons. Scientists who had been studying medicine began working on ship designs. Schools closed, and the teachers joined the military. Within 1 week, Earth had doubled the size of its fleet. Within 2 weeks, they had tripled it. But it was not the numbers that disturbed Vel. It was how the humans moved. Every other species she had observed fought with careful planning. They calculated costs and benefits. They measured acceptable losses. Humans did not seem to do this. They simply prepared. All of them. Together. As if the entire species had received a single order and obeyed without question. "They are not like other species," Oren observed one evening as they watched another report. "When threatened, most species negotiate. They try to minimize damage. Humans do not seem to have this instinct." "What instinct do they have instead?" Oren was quiet for a moment. "I believe they call it spite. When someone threatens what they love, they do not calculate whether they can win. They simply decide that the enemy must lose, whatever the cost." On the border of human space, the fleet was assembling. Vel requested images from long-range sensors. When the images arrived, she studied them for a long time. The human ships were not beautiful. They were not elegant like Novan vessels, with their smooth lines and polished hulls. Human ships were ugly. They were covered in extra armor plates that did not match. They bristled with weapons that seemed to have been welded on as afterthoughts. Some of them had strange markings painted on their sides, words and symbols that Vel did not understand. "Those ships," she said slowly, "they do not match any standard designs in our database." "No," Oren agreed. "The humans appear to have modified them, extensively." "Modified them how?" Oren pulled up the analysis. "They have removed safety systems to make room for more weapons. They have overcharged their engines beyond recommended limits. They have installed armor that will make the ships slower but much harder to kill." He paused. "These are not ships designed to win battles, Ambassador. These are ships designed to make the enemy pay for every victory in blood." Vel felt something cold settle in her chest. It was not fear, exactly. It was something older, something her species had not felt in a very long time. "The Novans will still win," she said, but her voice was less certain now. "Perhaps," Oren replied, "but I am beginning to wonder what winning against humans will cost them." Far away, at the edge of human space, Admiral Tae Woo stood on the bridge of his flagship. Captain Hana Kim approached him with a report. "All ships are in position, Admiral. We are ready." Tae Woo nodded slowly. Through the window, he could see the stars of the frontier. Somewhere out there, the Novan fleet was coming. "Good," he said quietly. "Now we wait." "Sir?" Hana looked at him. "The Novans outnumber us 5-1. How do we win this?" The Admiral turned to look at her. His face was calm, but there was something ancient in his eyes. Something that had been passed down through 100 generations of warriors and survivors. "We do not need to win, Captain. We simply need to make them understand that some prices are too high to pay, and that war with humanity is the highest price of all." The war room beneath Seoul was buried deep underground. It had been built during an older war, when humans still fought each other with nuclear fire. Now it served a different purpose. Now it was the heart of humanity's defense against the stars. Dr. Yuna Choi stood before a room full of alien observers. They had come from 12 different species, all members of the Galactic Council, all curious about how humans would face their doom. Yuna was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. She had spent 20 years studying alien cultures. Now she would teach aliens about her own. You want to understand how humans fight, she began. Her voice was soft but carried through the silent room. You have read our numbers. You know we are outnumbered. You know our technology is younger than yours. You expect us to surrender or die quickly. You are wrong about us. Ambassador Vel sat in the front row. She had requested permission to observe human war preparations, and to her surprise, the humans had agreed. They seemed to hide nothing. This confused her. Every other species guarded their military secrets carefully. Humans do not fight like other species, Yuna continued. When you go to war, you calculate. You measure territory gained against resources lost. You set acceptable casualty limits. You plan for surrender conditions before the first shot is fired. She paused. We do not do this. One of the alien observers raised a limb. Then how do you determine when to stop fighting? Yuna's expression did not change. We stop when the enemy can no longer fight, or when we can no longer fight. There is no middle ground. The room went very quiet. This is not strategy, Yuna said. This is who we are. We did not evolve on a kind world. Earth tried to kill us with ice and fire and disease. We survived because we refused to stop, because we would rather die standing than live on our knees. The Novans do not understand this yet. They will. After the briefing, Vel was given permission to tour the human flagship Horizon. Captain Hana Kim was assigned as her guide. They walked through metal corridors that hummed with power. Human soldiers moved past them, nodding to their captain but barely glancing at the alien ambassador. Your ship is very functional, Vel said carefully. It was the politest word she could find. The truth was that the Horizon was ugly. Exposed pipes ran along the ceiling. The walls were covered in scratches and dents. Everything looked like it had been repaired a dozen times. Hana laughed. It was a warm sound. She is not pretty, but she has survived 3 engagements that should have killed her. We do not throw away things that still work. They passed a doorway, and Vel glimpsed a room full of human soldiers sitting together. Some were eating. Others were talking quietly. A few were looking at small objects in their hands. What are they doing? Vel asked. Remembering, Hana said. She led Vel into the room. The soldiers looked up but did not seem bothered by the alien's presence. One young man held a small piece of paper with colorful marks on it. My daughter drew this, he said, noticing Vel's gaze. She is 4 years old. She told me it is a picture of our family standing on a rainbow. Another soldier, an older woman, held a small metal ring on a chain around her neck. My wedding ring. My husband died 6 years ago. I carry him with me. A third held a folded letter, the paper worn soft from handling. From my grandmother. She wrote it before she passed. She told me to be brave and come home safe. Vel did not understand. Why do you carry these things into battle? They have no tactical value. Hana looked at her for a long moment. That is exactly why we carry them. They remind us what we are fighting for. Every human on this ship has something to protect. A child, a memory, a promise. When the battle comes and we are afraid, we hold these things and remember. Remember what? That we cannot lose. Because losing means those things disappear. And we will burn the entire galaxy to ashes before we let that happen. Far from the flagship, on a dusty moon called Training Ground 7, Sergeant June Park stood before his soldiers. They were not professional warriors. 3 weeks ago, they had been farmers, teachers, doctors, and shopkeepers. 72 hours after the war declaration, they had shown up at recruitment centers across Earth. Now, they were learning to fight. You are not soldiers, June told them honestly. His voice was rough from years of service. You do not move like soldiers. You do not think like soldiers. Some of you have never held a weapon before last week. The volunteers stood in uneven lines. Some were young, some were old. One woman in the front row was clearly past 60, her hair white as snow. "But you are here," June continued. "You did not have to come. No one forced you. You chose this. And that makes you more dangerous than any trained killer in the galaxy." He began walking down the line, looking at each face. "The Novans have professional armies. They have soldiers who have trained since birth. But those soldiers fight because it is their job. You fight because someone threatened your homes, your families, your children." He stopped in front of the old woman. "Why are you here, grandmother?" She met his eyes without fear. "My grandson is on the colony ship heading to New Busan. If the Novans take that world, he dies. I will not let that happen." June nodded slowly. "That is why we will win. Not because we are stronger, not because we are better trained, but because every single one of us has someone we would die for, and we will make the Novans pay in blood for every centimeter they take." Back on the Pale Council observation vessel, Scholar Oren had found something in the human archives. He called Ambassador Vel to his quarters with urgency in his voice. "I have discovered something," he said when she arrived. "Something that explains much." He pulled up a document on his screen. It was old, written in a human language that the translation systems rendered carefully. "This is called the Doctrine of Total War," Oren explained. "It is a human military philosophy from their past. Most galactic species fight limited wars. We have rules, surrender protocols, acceptable boundaries. Humans had these once. Then they abandoned them." Vel read the document. Her blood ran cold. "Total war means that there are no civilians," Oren continued. "Everyone is part of the war effort. Every factory, every farm, every person. The entire society becomes a weapon aimed at one goal, the complete defeat of the enemy." "This is madness," Vel whispered. "This is survival," Oren corrected. "Humans learned that half measures lead to future wars. They learned that enemies who are not completely defeated will return. So they developed this doctrine. When humans truly commit to war, they do not stop until the enemy cannot fight anymore. Not will not. Cannot. The Novans do not know this. No. Commander Reth expects a quick war, a few battles, a surrender, and new territory for the Empire. He does not understand that humans do not believe in quick wars. They believe in total wars, and they have not yet begun to fight." At that moment, across the void of space, the Novan fleet crossed into human territory. 500 ships in perfect formation, flags of conquest streaming in the solar wind. Commander Reth stood on his bridge, confident in his coming victory. He did not know that every human eye was watching. He did not know that every human heart was hardening. He did not know that he had just awakened something ancient and terrible. On the horizon, Admiral Tae Woo received the report of the enemy's advance. He turned to Captain Hana Kim. "Give the order," he said quietly. "All ships fall back. Let them come deep into our space." Hana frowned. "Sir, we are retreating?" "No." The Admiral's eyes were cold. "We are letting them walk into the trap. And when they are deep enough, we will close the door behind them and show them what humanity is really capable of." The human fleet was retreating. Commander Reth watched from his bridge as his sensors tracked the enemy ships falling back, system after system. A smile spread across his gray face. His advisors had warned him that humans might be unpredictable, but this was the same pattern he had seen a dozen times before. A young species facing a superior force, running for their lives. "They break faster than I expected," Reth said to his second-in-command. "Perhaps they are not as foolish as their speeches suggested." "Should we slow our advance, Commander? Our supply lines are stretching." "No, press forward. I want this war finished before the Council can decide to intervene. Every day we delay is a day the humans might find allies." The Novan fleet pushed deeper into human space. They passed abandoned outposts and empty stations. Sometimes they found supplies left behind, as if the humans had fled too quickly to take everything. Reth saw this as proof of panic. He did not stop to wonder if it was something else. On the Pale Council observation vessel, Ambassador Vel watched the same tactical display. Red dots representing Novan ships moved steadily forward. Blue dots representing human ships moved steadily back. To any observer, it looked like a rout. "They are being destroyed," Vel said, "just as I predicted." Scholar Oren did not respond immediately. He was studying something else, his old eyes fixed on a different screen. This one showed intercepted human communications. They were encrypted, but even the patterns of transmission were information. "Ambassador," he said slowly, "look at this." Vel moved to his side. "What am I seeing?" "Human communication traffic during the retreat, and it has increased by 400%. They are not panicking. They are coordinating something." Vel frowned. "Coordinating what? They are fleeing." Oren pulled up a map of human space. "Notice the pattern of their retreat. They are not falling back randomly. They are falling back to specific locations. Here, here, and here." He pointed to 3 systems that formed a triangle. "These systems have unusual asteroid density, and these," he pointed to several gas giants along the retreat path, "have extreme atmospheric interference that blocks most sensors." "What are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting that we are not watching a retreat, Ambassador. I am watching something else, something I have seen in human history before." He pulled up an old military record. "They call it a fighting retreat. They fall back, but not because they are losing. They fall back to draw the enemy into a position of their choosing. That would require extraordinary discipline. And the Novans are not fools. They would notice." "Would they?" "The Novans see what they expect to see. A young species running from a superior force. That expectation blinds them." On the colony world of Danwan 7, Sergeant June Park led the evacuation. Civilian transports lifted off every hour, carrying families to safer systems. The streets of the main city were organized chaos. People moved with purpose, carrying children and essentials, filing into ships without fighting or panic. A young girl, maybe 7 years old, tugged at June's uniform as he directed traffic. She had lost her parents in the crowd and was crying. "Hey, little one." June knelt down to her level. His voice softened. "What is your name?" "Su Min," she sniffled. "That is a beautiful name. My mother's name was Sue. We are going to find your parents, okay? But first I need you to be brave for me. Can you do that?" She nodded, wiping her eyes. June looked up and spotted one of his soldiers nearby. "Private Lee, take Su Min to the coordination center. Find her family." As the soldier led the girl away, Su Min looked back. "Are we losing?" she asked. "Are the bad aliens going to get us?" June forced himself to smile. "No, little one. We are not losing. We are getting angry. And when humans get angry, the bad aliens should be the ones who are scared." The girl smiled a little and walked away. June watched her go, then turned to face the horizon. Somewhere up there, beyond the blue sky, the Novan fleet was coming. They would reach this world in 3 days, but the civilians would be gone in 2. And then Danwan 7 would become something else, not a home to protect, a trap to spring. Commander Reth's fleet arrived at what his intelligence officers called the final human defensive line, a collection of 40 ships arranged before a cluster of 3 systems. Behind those systems was the route to Earth itself. This was where the humans would make their last stand. "They have nowhere left to run," Reth announced to his command staff. "Today we break them. Tomorrow we discuss Earth's surrender." He ordered the attack. The human ships fought hard but were pushed back. 5 human vessels were destroyed, then 10. The survivors retreated toward the planet below, a world called Hynum. Reth ordered pursuit. This would be quick. This would be clean. And then the strangest thing happened. A single transmission broadcast on all channels. Not encrypted, not hidden. Open for everyone to hear, from the Novans to the Pale Council to every species watching from across the galaxy. Admiral Tae Woo appeared on screen. He was standing on the bridge of his flagship. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations with perfect calm. No panic, no fear, just quiet determination. "Commander Reth," the Admiral said, "I know you are listening. I know you believe you are winning. I want you to understand something before what comes next." Reth watched with narrowed eyes. "Let him speak. I want to hear a human beg." But Tae Woo did not beg. "You wanted war with humanity," he continued. "Now you have it. You have burned our outposts. You have taken our stations. You believe this means you are winning." His voice dropped lower. "You are wrong. Every ship we have lost, every colony you have touched, every single one of our people you have harmed, we remember. And humans always collect what they are owed." "Brave words for a defeated enemy," Reth muttered. "Continue the attack." "One more thing, Commander." Tae Woo's expression did not change, but something terrible moved behind his eyes. "You should check your sensors. Look at the asteroid field to your port side. Look at the gas giant behind you. Look at the abandoned stations you passed without searching." Reth felt the first cold touch of doubt. "What are you talking about?" "You walked into our space like you owned it. You were so certain of victory that you did not stop to think. You did not wonder why we fell back so easily. You did not ask yourself what we might be planning." The Admiral paused. "Now you are surrounded, and there is nowhere for you to run." Alarms began screaming across Reth's bridge. The tactical display, which had shown only the small human fleet before them, suddenly filled with new contacts. Ships emerging from asteroid fields, ships rising from the clouds of gas giants, ships powering up from stations that had seemed dead and empty. Not one fleet, 12 fleets, emerging from every direction, surrounding the Novan invasion force completely. "How many ships?" Reth demanded. His tactical officer's voice shook. 240, no, 260. "Commander, they are still appearing. We did not see them. The interference, the asteroids, they hid everything." Reth stared at the display. His 500 ships, which had seemed so overwhelming, were now caught in a sphere of human vessels. He had walked his entire fleet into a trap, and he had done it willingly, blinded by his own confidence. On the screen, Admiral Tae Woo spoke one final time. "You came to conquer us. You came to take our worlds and enslave our people. You called us weak. You called us young. You called us easy prey." His voice was cold as the void between stars. "You were wrong. And now, Commander Reth, you will learn what happens when you make humanity march to war." The transmission ended, and across 3 systems, the human fleet began to close in. The Battle of Danwon Corridor began at dawn, ship time. It would last for 9 days. It would be remembered for 1,000 years. And it would change the way the galaxy thought about humanity forever. Commander Reth's first order was to break through the human encirclement. He concentrated his forces on the weakest point of the enemy line, 200 ships pushing toward 30 human vessels. By every calculation, he should have punched through in hours. It took 4 days. The human ships did not fight like proper warships. They did not hold formation. They did not follow predictable patterns. Instead, they swarmed. Small groups of 3 or 4 ships would dart in, strike at a vulnerable target, and disappear before Reth's gunners could respond. When he tried to pursue, other groups would hit his flanks. "They fight like insects," Reth snarled on the 3rd day. "No discipline, no order." His tactical officer studied the patterns. "With respect, Commander, they have discipline. It is simply not our discipline. They are coordinating at a level we cannot track. Every ship knows where every other ship is. They are fighting as a single organism with 200 hands. On the Pale Council observation vessel, Ambassador Vel watched the battle unfold with growing horror. The human tactics were unlike anything in galactic military doctrine. A damaged human ship, instead of retreating for repairs, had accelerated directly into a Novan cruiser. The collision destroyed both vessels. "That pilot knew he was going to die," Vel said quietly. "He chose to die." Scholar Oren nodded. "The humans have a word for this. They call it sacrifice. It is not suicide. Suicide is giving up. Sacrifice is trading your life for something greater. What could be greater than survival? To them, making sure the enemy pays for victory in blood. Making sure others survive because you did not." Captain Hana Kim led a wing of 12 interceptors through the chaos. Her mission was impossible by any reasonable standard. Intel had identified the Novan command ship, a massive carrier at the center of the enemy formation. If it fell, the Novan fleet would lose coordination. But the carrier was protected by 50 warships and more defensive guns than Hana could count. "Flight lead to all wings," she spoke into her comm. "We are going for the carrier. Stay tight. Move fast. Trust each other." Her pilots responded with confirmation signals. No hesitation, no questions. They knew the odds. They did not care. The interceptors dove through the battle like arrows through a storm. Around them, larger ships traded devastating fire. Explosions lit the void. Debris scattered in all directions. Hana's hands were steady on the controls. Her heart was calm. In her pocket, she carried a small photograph of her younger brother, who was somewhere on Earth, probably watching this battle on the news. "For you, little brother," she whispered, "I will come home, but first I have a job to do." The carrier's hangar bay was ahead, a massive opening in the enemy ship's hull where fighters launched and landed. It was also a weakness, if someone was crazy enough to fly directly into it. "All wings! On my mark! We go straight in! Do not stop for anything! Lead! That is a suicide run! No, that is our job! Mark!" 12 interceptors accelerated toward the hangar bay. Defensive guns opened fire. 2 human ships exploded, then 3 more. Hana's wing dissolved around her, but she did not stop. She could not stop. Stopping meant her brother and everyone like him would face the Novans alone. Her interceptor screamed through the hangar bay entrance and into the carrier itself. The impact alarms went off. Her wing clipped a parked fighter and she spun out of control, crashing through an internal wall and into what looked like a command center. The world went dark. When Hana opened her eyes, she was lying in wreckage. Her left arm was broken. Blood ran down her face. But she was alive, and around her, Novan officers were screaming as secondary explosions ripped through their ship. She pulled herself from the ruins of her cockpit. In her good hand, she held her sidearm. 3 Novan soldiers appeared in the doorway. She shot them without hesitation. "Human vessel to any friendly ship?" She spoke into her emergency beacon. "Target carrier Alpha is compromised. I am inside and causing chaos. If anyone can hear me, now would be a good time for support." Far above, Admiral Tae Woo received her message. His jaw tightened. "Get her out of there," he ordered. "Whatever it takes." On the surface of Danwan 7, Sergeant June Park and his volunteers held a mountain pass. The Novan ground forces had landed 2 days ago, expecting easy conquest. They found something else. The pass was narrow. Only 20 soldiers could hold it at a time, but June's volunteers held it like it was made of gold. They were outnumbered 8-1. They had ammunition for 3 more days. They had been fighting without sleep for 40 hours, and they did not retreat. "Sergeant, we cannot hold much longer." Private Lee crouched beside him, reloading his weapon. "They just keep coming." June peered over their barricade. The Novan soldiers were massing for another push. Their armor gleamed in the pale light. Their weapons were better. Their training was professional. They should have overwhelmed this pass in the first hour. But they faced something they had never encountered. Humans who did not care about odds. Humans who fought like every centimeter of ground was sacred. Humans who smiled when they were afraid and laughed when they should have wept. "We hold," June said simply. "Reinforcements are coming. We just have to hold." "And if they do not come?" June looked at his soldiers, farmers, teachers, grandmothers, children in adult bodies, not one of them trained for this, every one of them still fighting. "Then we make them remember this pass for 1,000 years. We make them tell stories about the humans who would not break. We make them afraid to ever threaten Earth again." The Novans attacked. June's volunteers met them with fire and fury. On the observation vessel, Ambassador Vel watched a human destroyer take a fatal hit. The ship was crippled, engines dead, drifting toward the void. Any other species would have surrendered. Escape pods would have launched. The crew would have accepted defeat and lived to fight another day. The human destroyer did not launch escape pods. Instead, it turned. Slowly, painfully, using only maneuvering thrusters. It turned toward the nearest Novan carrier. "What are they doing?" Vel asked, though she already knew. She did not want to know. But she knew. The destroyer's final transmission broadcast on all channels. A single voice, calm and clear. "This is Captain Dong Su of the destroyer Evergreen. Our engines are gone. Our weapons are offline, but our ship still moves, and we will not die quietly." A pause. "Tell our families we love them. Tell our children we did this for them. And tell the Novans this, for our children." The destroyer accelerated on its final course. "For our children," another voice joined in. Then another. The entire crew speaking together. "For our children." The collision was visible from orbit. The destroyer struck the Novan carrier amidships, detonating its remaining reactor. Both ships vanished in a bloom of light. Vel realized she was crying. She did not know when she had started. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do they do this?" Scholar Oren's voice was soft. "Because they are not fighting for territory or resources. They are fighting for their children, for their future, for the idea that the people they love will be safe because they were willing to die." He paused. "There is no force in the galaxy more dangerous than that. There is nothing that can defeat it. You can only survive it if you are wise enough to never threaten what humans love." On the 9th day, the Novan fleet broke. They had lost half their ships. Their command carrier was crippled. Their ground forces were surrounded. And still the humans kept coming. Still they fought with that terrible, patient fury. Commander Reth ordered a full retreat. His remaining ships turned and ran for Novan space. But as they fled, a message arrived from Admiral Tae Woo. "Commander Reth, you are surrendering?" "I am requesting terms," Reth replied, his voice hollow. "Denied." "What?" "You came to our space without mercy. You burned our colonies without mercy. You killed our people without mercy. Now you ask for terms?" The Admiral's voice was ice. "We are not finished yet, Commander. Run home. Tell your empire what happened here, and pray we decide that destroying your fleet is enough. Because if we decide it is not, we will come for you, and we will not stop until there is nothing left." The transmission ended. In the silence of her observation deck, Ambassador Vel began composing her report. Her hands shook as she wrote. The humans had won. That was not the important part. The important part was how they had won, and what that meant for every other species in the galaxy. 1 year after the Battle of Danwan Corridor, the Novan Empire no longer existed. The humans had not stopped at victory. They had pushed into Novan space, system by system, world by world. But they did not conquer. They did something far more devastating. They liberated. Every slave species the Novans had collected over centuries found human ships in their skies. Not warships come to occupy them, but transports carrying food, medicine, and engineers. The humans did not ask for territory. They did not demand tribute. They simply said, "You are free now. What you do with that freedom is your choice." The Novan military collapsed. Their economy collapsed. Their government collapsed, not because the humans destroyed them, but because every species they had oppressed rose up at once, inspired by the humans who had proven that the Novans could bleed. And through it all, the humans broadcast everything, every war crime the Novans had committed. Every atrocity they had hidden, every lie they had told to justify their empire. The galaxy watched, and the galaxy remembered. Ambassador Vel stood before the Galactic Council. The great chamber was filled with representatives from 100 species, all watching her with complete attention. She had been asked to present her report on the human war. She had spent months preparing it. But now that she was here, her carefully written words seemed inadequate. "I was sent to observe the humans," she began. "I expected to document their defeat. I expected to write about a young species that overreached and was crushed. I was wrong." She pressed a control, and images appeared behind her. Human ships, human soldiers, human faces. "We called them young. We meant it as an insult. We thought it meant they were weak, inexperienced, easy to break. We did not understand what young means to humans. It means hungry. It means adaptable. It means not bound by traditions that tell them what is impossible." The images changed. The Battle of Danwon Corridor. Ships colliding. Ground troops holding against impossible odds. We called them primitive. We looked at their short history among the stars and saw nothing worth respecting. We did not look deeper. We did not see the 10,000 years of war they fought with themselves. We did not see the survival instincts forged by a planet that tried to kill them at every turn. We did not see the darkness they carry inside them, controlled but never forgotten. Vel paused. Her voice dropped lower. The Novans believed they were starting a quick war against a weak enemy. They were wrong. They woke something that had been sleeping, and that something destroyed them. She turned to face the council directly. "I am not here to tell you that humans are dangerous. You already know that. Every species that watched this war knows that. I am here to tell you what I have learned. Humans are not predators. They do not hunt for sport. They do not conquer for glory. They build farms and schools and hospitals. They make art and music and stories. They dream of peace the way other species dream of power. But when they are threatened, when their families are threatened, when their children are threatened, they become something else. They become the thing every species should fear, not because they are strong, but because they will not stop, ever, for any reason, until the threat is gone." The images behind her changed to show Earth, blue oceans, green continents, cities full of light. "Look at that world," Vel said. "A world of farmers and artists and scientists. A world where people argue about poetry and debate philosophy and fall in love and raise children. That is what humans want. That is all they want. But they will burn down the galaxy before they let anyone take it from them." She stepped back from the podium. "My official recommendation to this council is simple. Do not threaten humanity. Do not harm their people. Do not touch their worlds. Let them have their peace. Because if you do not, you will learn the same lesson the Novans learned, and it will be the last lesson you ever learn." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then slowly the representatives began to speak among themselves. The discussion would continue for hours, but the conclusion was already clear. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through diplomacy or economics, but through something older and more primal. They had earned it through blood. Scholar Oren published his analysis 3 months later. The title became famous across 1,000 worlds. Why You Should Never Make Humanity March to War. In it, he wrote, "The greatest mistake any species can make is to assume that kindness is weakness. Humans are kind because they choose to be, not because they must be. They have seen the alternative. They have lived the alternative. They know what they are capable of when kindness fails, and they have decided as a species that they prefer to be good. But remember always, a wolf that sleeps beside your fire is still a wolf, and if you threaten its pack, it will remind you of its teeth." The book was banned in 6 systems. It became required reading in 40 others. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The factories that had built warships returned to building farming equipment. The scientists who had designed weapons returned to studying medicine. The teachers who had carried rifles returned to their classrooms. 1 year after the war, a young alien diplomat visited Earth. She was from a species that had remained neutral during the conflict. She wanted to understand humans better. Dr. Yuna Choi was assigned as her guide. They walked through the streets of Seoul on a warm autumn afternoon. Children played in parks. Old men sat on benches and argued about sports. Couples held hands and laughed together. "This is what they were fighting for?" the diplomat asked. She seemed confused. "This ordinary life?" Yuna smiled. "Yes, this is exactly what they were fighting for. But you could have so much more. With your military power, you could conquer half the galaxy. You could be an empire greater than the Novans ever were." "We could," Yuna agreed. "And then what? We would become what we fought against. We would become the threat that makes other species march to war. We would lose the very thing we were trying to protect." She watched a mother push a stroller past them, cooing at the baby inside. "We do not want to rule the galaxy. We want to live in it, peacefully, freely, with time for our families and our dreams. And if someone threatens that again?" Yuna's smile did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. "Then we will do what we did before. We will put down our books and pick up our weapons. We will leave our families and march to war, and we will not stop until the threat is gone, no matter how long it takes or what it costs us." She paused. "But we will not enjoy it. We will not celebrate it. We will simply do what must be done, and then we will come home and try to forget." The diplomat was quiet for a long moment. "You are a strange species." "We know." Far from Seoul, in a small coastal town, Admiral Tae-woo had retired. His house overlooked the ocean, and every morning he walked down to the shore to fish. He caught very little, but that was not the point. The point was the peace, the quiet, the sound of waves and the cry of seagulls. One afternoon, his granddaughter came to visit. She was 8 years old, full of questions and energy. She found him on the beach, staring at the horizon. "Grandfather, what was the war like?" He was silent for a long time. "How do you explain war to a child? How do you describe the fear and the anger and the terrible things you had to do? How do you make them understand without taking away their innocence?" "It was hard," he said finally. "Very hard. We lost good people. People I cared about. People who will never come home." "Why did you fight?" He turned to look at her. She had her mother's eyes and her grandmother's stubborn chin. In her face, he saw all the generations that had come before and all the generations that would come after. "Because someone threatened the people I love, and there is nothing in the universe more dangerous than a human protecting the people they love." She thought about this. "Are the bad aliens gone now?" "They are." "Will more bad aliens come?" Tae-woo reached down and took her hand. Together, they watched the sun set over the water. "Maybe. Someday. But if they do, we will be ready. Not because we want to fight, but because we must protect what matters. Our families, our homes, our future." He squeezed her hand gently. "Your future." I am not afraid, she said. Good. Humans should never be afraid. Not of the dark, not of the unknown, not of enemies who think we are weak. He smiled. We are not weak. We just prefer to be kind. But we have never, ever forgotten how to be strong. The stars appeared one by one as night fell. Somewhere out there, 1,000 species looked at those same stars and remembered what they had learned. Humans prefer peace. They build instead of destroy. They heal instead of harm. They dream of a future where war is a memory and children never have to be afraid. But they carry something else inside them, something forged by ice ages and plagues and 10,000 years of fighting, something that sleeps but never dies. And when it wakes, when something threatens what they love, the galaxy itself trembles. They are humanity, and heaven help anyone who makes them march to war again.